So, Kat, thanks for joining me today on the Mark and Me podcast.
Thank you for having me.
What I do on all episodes of the podcast, and it doesn't matter if you're a writer, a director, a musician, is take it right back to the very start. And I'm always interested in when you were growing up, those first albums that you remember that you maybe bought with your pocket money or you were given from a family member or a friend that made you fall in love with music.
Oof. It definitely, well, I don't know if we sound like this band, but it was OK Computer, Radiohead.
One of the
That
greatest albums ever made.
I know, and I know it sounds cliche that I'm saying it, but it's the honest to God truth. That was definitely the first time. Fiona Apple as well. Those were the artists that were pretty significant for me personally as a kid that I was like, I really want to say a lot. And it was more the words for me first and then the
Yeah.
vocals. So I also trained myself as that as well, where in sixth grade I was writing poetry and entering poetry contests, but then I only started to sing and take vocal lessons to support the words. And I
Yeah.
noticed that those artists were very much that same way. Like as much as I love Tom York's vocals, no one's saying like Tom York is the greatest singer, but the way he expresses his thoughts and his words, it hits in such an incredible way that was really what inspired me. So definitely OK Computer, because that was just that era that I was in. But then when I went backwards and kind of caught up, it was the whole all of it. And I loved how every album Radiohead has changed their sound and they just kept exploring and developing themselves. It also taught me, for better or worse, in our own band, you don't ever have to just be one thing. And then I always think about that when I'm writing something. I don't ever think about, oh, is this going to be for this market or this playlist or this radio? It's more just about what do I want to say and what music best supports that.
Radiohead for me are one of the greatest bands ever. The fact
Yeah.
they brought out Kid A and changed music, like they do
Hmm.
not sound like the same band that could have brought out the Bends or then released Amnesiac later on. It was
Hmm.
amazing how they just continue to evolve.
Yeah.
They never play it safe. They never make the same album again. And I think if that's someone that's influencing you, then you can't go wrong. OK Computer is, for me, one of the top 10 albums ever made. I honestly don't know
It's
how
a
you
perfect
write. I
album.
don't know how you write an album like that. I just sit there and like
Yeah.
the journey that something like Paranoid Android takes you on. It's just mind blowing.
Yeah, and even the level of lyricism too. Like I always, how society based, political based that they are, but they say it in such a way that you don't feel like it's just jammed on you. It's very thought provoking, and I feel like that is kind of definitely inspired me. So
Yeah.
where on first listen, some might be like, "You sound nothing like Radiohead," but if you go under the hood, then you're like, "Oh, okay, I get why that lyric was that lyric, and I get why." So it's a huge influence, and Exit Music for a Film is
Oh my
definitely the
God.
the one song, yeah, that could. I've often said this in the most morbid way, but if I have the choice to play music on my death day, please play me out to that
Well,
song.
this is being
And
recorded, so hopefully someone will listen and be like, right,
yes,
and take note. And then when it does
yeah,
happen,
don't kill me,
you'll get the song.
please.
Yeah. Don't
Yeah,
die too
don't,
soon, but when you do,
yeah,
get the right song.
yeah, yeah. But come to my aid and just play this in my ear. But
Yeah, that
yeah.
song makes my hairs on my neck stick up. Like it sends like shivers down my spine, and I
Hey,
can
yeah,
I listen to it more and more, and I'm always hearing something new. It might be a different slight guitar I didn't hear from Johnny Greenwood at first, or a different
yeah.
harmony from Tom. But that song and that album, like, it makes me now just want to go and listen to it
Yeah,
right
I
now. I'm
know.
like, should we just bin this interview off and listen to Radiohead together? But
I know. And that's an album too, because we become such a single based music industry. But then there was like, you can't not just listen to one song and fuck off. Like
no.
it is, you have to listen to the whole album from start to finish. And I miss albums like that, honestly.
Well, I think it's a lost art now, and I think I'm not disrespecting any artist, but bands obviously want to hit hard straight away because people's attention span now, because of TikTok and
Yeah.
streaming, it's literally get those first hits on the album straight away and try and grab someone's attention. But
Yeah.
I was literally talking to Biffy Clyro on the podcast, and we were saying it's a shame that they don't get these opportunities anymore to really release this full album that's potential, that takes you on a journey, that's track listings are even like put down in an order to take you through that. It's all about quick, let's get everyone to listen to us right away, you know?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, we're kind of unfortunately like the product of that as well, even though I do like our debut album, Eat It Up, Spit It Out. I was like, I want interludes. Even though we've crafted this album over the pandemic and it wasn't a concept album per se, but when you look at everything of what I'm saying lyrically and even the sounds Nick's producing with, song to song, there is a very obvious through line to everything. And it was about the society we become and this like devalue of art and music and life for that matter. Dating even in this society is so hard, I imagine, where it's just like cataloging, you don't really get much human interaction, and it's more just a digital yes no kind of society. That's the same across the board. So I really wanted the interludes and the intro and the outro. I wanted everything to feel like a cohesive body of work, because that's how I first fell in love with music, was listening to full albums.
We sound like two old people now, and everyone's like, "Shut
I
up, grandma, granddad." Like,
am, yeah. I'm a millennial, so
yeah,
sorry to. I'm not the Gen Z, so but I am at that cusp where the internet was in my youth, so
yeah,
I did. I'm not so far where it's like it's got to be this way, and this was what music was. But I also see what social media and this. It's not the music industry anymore. It's the internet industry. That's what we've
yeah.
become, and it's so, to me personally, I think it's so much pressure. It's so oversaturated, and I'm not trying to be a gatekeeper where like you can do music but you can't, but it's changed it in such a way that I don't even know if anything, like I don't even know what's good anymore. It's just, is it shocking? Does it grab you? Like now artists are writing songs for TikTok for transitions only, and I don't know. I mean, but you're right. I sound like a get off my lawns person. So I should just fuck off, I guess. I don't
So
know.
talk to me about live music, because I talk way too much on every episode, but I always like to talk about one of the first gigs I went to, and it was Green Day. And I saw
Yeah.
them on their Dookie tour, and they blew me away. I absolutely
Yeah.
couldn't get enough of them, and that's what kind of then got me into bands like Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, Nirvana, Deftones, all these sort of bands. But what was that first gig that you remember maybe you went to that kind of had that impact, where the hairs on your neck stick up, your kind of chest shakes
Hmm.
from the bass guitar, and you got that kind of, oh my god, like this is what I want to do, this is the power behind the music in front of me?
Well, I have two answers. My first concert ever was actually
Is it not a
Puff
cool one?
Daddy.
All
No,
right,
no, it
cool.
was. It was Puff Daddy, Lil Kim. It was like this, it was I remember too, my friend, like her parents got a limo for all of us. We couldn't drive, we were kids. But it was like that was like I was like going to a rap, hip hop concert. It was like their family tour. I mean, I'm going way back into like the late 90s here, but um that was the first one. I wouldn't say it gave me chills. It was just more like that was my first concert, and
Yeah.
I went in a major way. But um I would say, I mean, Radiohead, definitely, to repeat myself, it was Hail to the Thief.
Oh my
Uh
god.
yeah, and that was the first time I ever saw them. That was like my first of now 7, 8 times that I've seen them. But at that time, that was my first time. That was chills at the Hollywood Bowl. But my other answer that I have to say really did change me was Savages. And I know they're not a
Nice.
band technically today,
No.
and Jenny Beth is solo, but
Yeah.
I caught them at Coachella. It's a kind of embarrassing to admit. Well, I shouldn't say that. Please hire it. Have us Coachella. I mean, but Coachella's became very influencer based, so I'm
Of
just saying it for
course.
that reason. But it was, I'm trying to remember who was even headlining then. I think it was Muse actually, but I caught them in a tent, and I caught their last couple songs, and I knew of them because here in LA, like I had their record, but I never saw them live, and I liked it. I did, but I never. It didn't give me this feeling that when I saw them live, and that was the first time I was enthralled by a front person. I was just like, the way Jenny Beth commanded that crowd, the whole band. But I remember seeing Jenny in the audience, like propelled up by her knees by the audience members and just singing to them with such like intensity and vitriol. And I knew in that moment, like, if I'm going to do music professionally, I need to be, it's like all or nothing, you know? So I would say that was the hair standing on the back of
Was
my
that the
neck.
kind of moment, or was it a bit later on in life that you thought, I want to do that? I want to go on stage. I want to do this for the rest of my life? Because there's always a point, isn't there? There's always a band you see, or a song you listen to, or a gig you
Mm.
attend that has that moment that makes you say, do you know what? I want to go at this.
Yeah, definitely that night. But
Yeah.
and then I saw them perform that I actually think was their last performance in the States as a band. It was at the Observatory headline because I only caught a couple songs of that. And then I was like, I have to see them next time they're here. And I did catch that. And then to my understanding, that was the last time. And then they broke up right after. But there was I don't remember the band. It was a solo artist. I wasn't doing music then, and I remember, I mean, I was doing it in the privacy of my own home, writing
Yeah.
like piano songs, but I wasn't doing it publicly. And I remember seeing an artist, and they were just so vulnerable on stage, and they were playing their music, and I just remember having this admiration for them and this envy at the same time that they had the confidence to do that. And at that time, I did not have any confidence. And I thought, why would anybody want to listen to me? You know? And that was the moment that I think really made me start to question why them, not me. And if they had that capability to inspire me, maybe if I just get out of my own way and put myself out there in a vulnerable way, I could help other people. Because it's all, you know, music's so
Of
powerful
course.
that
Yeah.
way. And it took a few years of me actually developing into that confidence. But yeah, I think that, again, I can't even tell you who it was. It was a local artist in Los Angeles that I just happened to stumble in at a bar, but I was completely just engaged. And so yeah, I admired that so much because at that time it wasn't who I was. So I wanted to be like that, you know?
So before Holy Wars, obviously, I don't know your whole career to date. Were you doing the
Mhm.
whole thing at college or school where you formed bands or covers bands and then kind of built up to this, or was this kind of one of your first avenues into music?
Well, yeah, I have two sides of how this even came to be. I'm from the East Coast. I grew up in theater. So I was always, and I did classical piano training. I wrote a lot of poetry. I wrote some horrible songs in my on my piano, crying over a breakup, you know. But then yeah, I did a lot of theater, and it came to that place where growing up in Connecticut, you're so close to New York. I went to an art school called ACES Educational Center for the Arts, where it was just for, it was like that show or that, God, my older siblings like, it was called Fame. Do you remember that? It was like a
I do,
movie or
yeah.
yeah, it was kind of like what I that was, you know, where I would go to my high school, and then I would go to this school right after for like 4 hours. But I knew early on I didn't want to do theater anymore. But in where I grew up, there was no bands. There were no punk bands. It was where Nick grew up in Las Vegas. It was all hardcore and punk. So he actually grew up playing in bands in high school, but I didn't. And I decided I wanted to come to California. My family was already out here anyway, so it
Yeah.
was an easy jump. And I went into acting first because I thought, well, theater, I'm just going to go into acting. And then I realized I do not like film. I like filmmaking, but I don't like acting in front of the camera. It just wasn't for me. So then cut to, you know, still playing music in my bedroom and such. I was waiting tables, like cocktailing at this sports bar. There was a casting director for this VH1 show that came in, and there was this. We had this hosted night called Rock Band. That game, like Guitar
Oh, the one you play
Hero.
along to, yeah.
Yeah. So our bar. I was a kid,
Yeah.
so I was old enough to be. I was 21, so I was old enough to be in a bar. But you know, I would go up and sing Creep and Maps, you know, whatever like songs I knew with the patrons. So they would like always need a singer, and they'd be like, "Oh, Kat, get up here." So I would like have my apron on still and like you know, singing. And one of those nights, this casting director was in there and she pulled me aside and she said, I'd love for you to be on the show. We have a show called Rock Band to the Stars. And yeah, I was like, oh, reality TV, no, I want nothing to do with this. And she's like, oh, it's not like Big Brother. You don't live in a house. It's just one weekend. We pay you for the weekend and you play rock bands. And I said, I don't know how to play this game. I only know how to like sing. And even then, you have to be so pitch perfect to win the points,
Yeah,
to
to
get
get the right
the
amount of
highest.
points. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to kind of sing robotically, and I'm like up there singing like it's my show. So I was like wavering my like vibrato, and I was like clearly not even good at that. So, anyways, for better or worse, she was like, well, just consider it. And I did. I was like, wait, I get paid. I don't have to work at the bar this weekend. Fuck it, I'm gonna try it. So I do. Sebastian Bach and Alice Cooper were the judges.
Oh my God.
Ted Stryker was the host. And there was hundreds of us that they were serious about this game, and deservedly so, because that's what this game show was about. And I just passed every round. And people were even like, why did she get there? She doesn't even play the game. And I was like, I don't know. I'm sorry. But I got through. I got it onto the show. Alice Cooper. I made it so far until I finally got cut. And because I was always going to get cut. I was even like, I don't know why I'm here, but fate is making me stay here, I guess, which it was, because after I got cut, they smash your guitar for you, and a PA comes up to me and says, Alice Cooper wants to see you. I was like, me? Why? So I go over to where his green room was, and Shep Gordon was there, his manager, and he was like, hey, he's like, so what's your story? And I was like, oh, I'm a cocktail waitress. And they're like, but do you sing? Do you play music? I said, yeah, I mean, in my bedroom, but nothing like professionally. And he just kind of talked to me like a dad. He was like, you're young, why not? And he's like this, but he did say, it's like, this business is, I wouldn't want my own kids to be in this business. But he literally said things like, I've seen Kelly Clarkson and she's no better than you. Like, you should try it. And I don't know, I took it like a sign from fucking the universe. I was
That's
like,
so surreal.
yeah, that's why I was like, there's a whole other story how I came into this. And I said to him, I was like, okay, well, wait a second. If I do this, what do I do? Like, how do I become a musician in Los Angeles? Like, who would care? So he was like, well, get a band. And he said, get a gimmick. He's like, take it from me, and I didn't take the gimmick thing. At the time, Lady Gaga was like the
Yeah.
meat dress and the Kermit Frog thing. And I was just like, that's just not me. I really just want to write real, not that, I mean, she's an incredible artist, but I just want to write the saddest songs you can think of, and just, exit music for a film. Like, I just
Yeah.
wanted to like
There you go.
write that over and over. And but yeah, he gave me great advice that day. And Shep Gordon too. I met him, and I even said, I was like, if I do this, and I write an album and I somehow get the money to record it, like, do I send it to you? Or what do I do? And he's like, yeah, sure. So Shep Gordon gives me his home address in Hawaii.
It
He's
sounds like
like,
a
yeah, and
film. This is incredible.
it is a long story, and I'll try and
No,
make
it's
this as
great.
short
It's
as
I remember
possible.
on Wayne's World when they go and meet Alice Cooper and they're like, "We're not worthy." And I'm
Yeah,
just
exactly.
imagining you going backstage and him standing there like, "Get up, get up."
Yeah, and I'm a kid, and he was, and again, I have to preface, because we live in this time, like, there was nothing creepy about it. He was like, literally talked to me like I was just a daughter, and he just was like, I see something in you, and I don't know. He's like, maybe I could be the words of encouragement that you just wouldn't tell yourself. And it was literally like that. And so I of course, I looked at the home address. There was no email, no phone number, just an address, and I was like, oh, this must be fake, but okay, thank you. And I take it and I think nothing of it. And it just became the story that I told people, that I met Shep Gordon and I have his address in Hawaii. But to me, I thought if it was a real address, it would be in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
At least that's what I thought as a kid. And but I did do what he said. I put out an ad to MI and I tried to form a band, and that's how I met Nick. And we wrote a lot of music, and we did play prior to Holy Wars. We did kind of try the whole
Yeah.
LA thing, and we wrote music, and it took a growing period of me trying to figure out how to write music like this. And also Nick, you know, he always grew up in the punk hardcore scene, and now he's like playing a totally like a female fronted thing. And we were into blues rock at the time. Nico Vega was really popular in our local scene. And I was like, I love Nico Vega. So we were doing like a 3-person thing where Nick would have his guitar and his bass going through the same, you know, it's very Jack White style. So it was a different sound than what we're doing now. But anyways, long story short, we I hold on to this piece of paper that Shep Gordon gave me. I thought I lost it because it was tiny, and now it was just like I was even like, did it happen? Did I just like
Pinching
convince
yourself,
my
yeah.
yeah? Because people were like, yeah, well, let me see it, and I was like, I can't find it, but this happened, you know. I was like gaslighting myself. So then 2015 happens. My parents pass away. And I'm now stuck here by myself, even though I have older siblings, but I'm in California alone with them, or where their house it was. And I'm cleaning it out by myself. And I shit you not, my mom had the piece of paper. She saved it in her filing cabinet in this like little envelope. And I just was like, it brought me to tears. And at that point, Holy Wars started. Or no, I'm so sorry. I didn't start Holy Wars. I stopped the band I had
Yeah.
before it, and Holy Wars started in 2017. But I didn't want to send the old music that I wrote because I was like, this is not even a thing anymore. And I wasn't even really proud of it. But I kept it. And then Nick and I were watching Supermensch, which is all about Shep Gordon, and it takes place in his house in Hawaii. And I was like, it was real this whole fucking time. And I never sent him anything. One, because I lost it, or I thought I lost it. Finds out my mom kept it because maybe I told her to keep it and I just forgot. I don't know. It was many years that passed during this time. So as we're watching Supermensch, Holy Wars had started. So it was 2017. And Nick looks at me and he was like, for the love of God, just send them something. And we had a manager, like we didn't need anything from them. It was just more to put like closure on this years story that these two men gave me the confidence to do what
You need
I
to know,
always
don't
wanted
you? It
to.
would have been the worst story ever if you just have kept that piece of paper and never done anything. That'd have been like, what an anticlimax.
Right. So we do our first EP, Mother Father. That was all the music that I wrote after my parents passing in 2015 and in 2017. It was only like 5 songs, 6 songs, because you can imagine I wasn't really writing a lot then, and that's kind of why Holy Wars started and why I call it Holy Wars. It's nothing to do with Megadeth. I'm very sorry, everybody. But it was a personal holy war that I was going through at the time. Also, religion destroyed my family. Like so much backstory there. But I just was like, okay, I am going to send them this EP, and I don't have a phone number or an email. I am just going to write him a handwritten letter with the EP, send it to him. And I even said, I told him the story. I said, I met you during this time. I thought this address was fake. I watched Supermensch. I saw it was real. I lost the piece of paper. My parents died. I found the piece of paper. I took it as a sign. I want nothing from you or Alice Cooper. I have a manager, but I just wanted you guys to know I have done all of this for these years. I've had my music on Fox. I've done all this stuff only because you guys told me I had the goods to do it. And if it wasn't for you, I would probably still be waiting tables. It was like that type of thing.
Yeah.
And I left my phone number. I left my email. I said, I'm only leaving you my information as a hope that if you're ever back in LA, I could buy you a drink. That is it. That's all I want. And I got a text message saying, hey, Shep Gordon here. I read your letter, and he said it was really moving. Thank you for sharing that with me. And I have his number, and he was like, yeah, if we're in LA, let's, I'll take that drink. And I
Wow.
haven't seen him or talked to him since. But that's all I needed. Like I just needed to put a period
The
to the end
clarification
of the
to know it was
story.
actually him as well and the right address is a perfect ending. It didn't need to be that he suddenly signed you or got you on tour. It's the fact that
Yeah.
he was legit.
It was legit, and I don't, spiritual. I'm not really religious, but like for my own peace of mind, I do like to believe that my parents are existing in some other realm, or they're here but I can't see them or whatever. So to me it was
Like your mum's
also
still looking out for you even now, you know?
exactly. Exactly. And it was all of that. It was this long story of why I'm even here today having this podcast with you. So yeah. So that's, sorry for the side tangent,
No,
but that is
it's
why and
interesting, and
how
it's
I
I'm
did
so
it.
glad it's a good ending to the
Yeah.
story. I'd be gutted if it was like, and then I never heard back. I'll be like,
Yeah.
no, you've told me all that story and there's no
I
ending.
know.
Yeah,
No, I heard back. I got his number. I
yeah,
have it saved. I've never used it because I'm trying to also he's only manages Alice Cooper,
yeah,
like but this is the man that also started the Food Network channel. Like he's just a brilliant mind and the fact that he took time out of his day to read my letter, whether he heard my EP or not, doesn't even matter. I just was
no,
like, here is some music I've done. And it was after all this time and it's probably the most honest raw music I've ever written because before then I wrote music but it was like like oh maybe we should do the radio or I was really influenced by this band and this was like I was influenced by nobody. This is pure emotion. Here you go.
yeah. It's life
So
events, isn't it? You can't get any more kind of real than that, or kind of raw than that. The death of your
yeah,
family. I'm sorry to hear that, but
yeah,
obviously it's a subject that you'll only get to write about once. That's such an
absolutely, yeah.
important part. So moving on from then, I suppose
Mm-hmm.
2017, you were saying you were doing this, and then sent the music off. At this
Mm-hmm.
point, you'd met Nick as well.
Oh yeah.
Did you have any expectations, you and Nick together? Did you kind of want to reach any goals? Like, did you have any dreams? Like, well, one day we might play Slam Dunk Festival, or one day we might do, Riot Fest.
Yeah.
Was there kind of a goal that you guys set yourself, or were you just kind of getting to know each other, working together, and just seeing where it went?
Well, both. I think when we first started, because I met him in 2013, 2012, 2012.
Yeah,
And it was before the passing of my parent, so we had all that time of just, yeah, playing the local scene, not really knowing. Like, I knew, like, if you asked me, what do you want? I would give you all the answers, but then it wasn't a focused answer. It'd be like, well, I want a tour and I want this and I want a record deal. And also too at that time when I was bartending, cocktail waitressing, I was also very much there would be this narrative that the customers would say to me like, oh, let me guess, you're an actor slash musician slash waiter. And then I felt like, yeah, like I'll remember this one time we had this dumb luck opportunity to where the music supervisor at Fox saw our band play, heard our music, and wanted to give us a chance. We happened to have an acoustic version of this one song that just hit all. So it was like the right place, right time. She was like, I want to help I want to help a female artist. So she had also like, I want to help artists. And it was like a Sunday morning, Bloody Marys kind of thing. And I'm waiting tables and somebody was like, so you're a musician. It was like this drunk guy. And he's like, oh, just get a real job or just go back to college or, marry a man and like, let him take care of you. Meanwhile, I hear my song on the commercial and
oh
I was
wow,
like, and I looked at him and I was like, really, I'm never gonna make it. Cause there was always like, are you signed to Atlantic Records? Like people have this like perception of what success means in the music industry. And that was then where it was
yeah,
like, if you're not signed, you're not shit. And I wasn't signed. I was an independent artist for many, many years. But that was like, that just showed me success looks different. Where here I am waiting tables, I hear my voice, I look up, and I was like, that's me. And of course, he was like, yeah, okay. He didn't believe it, but it wasn't for him. It was for me to know, like, this is possible. So then my goals started to change.
yeah,
Then I was like, what does this look like for me? How can I be successful in this? How can I get out of waiting tables? And then of course I had like, I want to play these major festivals and the dreams got bigger. And I'll also say when Holy War started, I was doing everything I can to just not be grieving every day and looking at my life of like, I'm an orphan now. What does this even mean? How do, that? And to this day, I struggle with this, to be completely honest. Goals to me are now distractions from depression.
of
So
course,
now I've become like Pac-Man, where I just every little ghost, every little achievement is like like I'm insatiable, you know? So now I have to find the balance of being okay with where I'm at today and enjoying the win I got and really being present for that win versus being like, okay, that was great. Now what's next? So I
Is
hope this
there
answered your question. But
is there
yeah.
a part of you, and I say this with full respect, that keeps yourself so busy, like Pac-Man, going after all the ghosts all the time,
Yeah.
because you don't want to stop and kind of face reality too much? Is that, and I mean this with full respect, are you kind of like, because
No, a
I do it,
hundred.
I sometimes will make myself so busy, do 10 interviews a day, just because I don't want to think about the bad things. And I've got a good life, I'm happy, but I'm just saying, so if you're having a bad day or a bad time or there's bad events, you'll preoccupy your mind as much as you can. And I was wondering
Yeah.
if you're, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to go here, I want to go there, because then you haven't got to kind of stop still and think too long.
100%.
Yeah,
100%. And I definitely also see the downside of that, you know, because now if I don't have 100 tasks in a day, or if I'm not getting a phone call saying you got this opportunity, then I look at my self-worth as though I'm not doing enough or I'm not good enough. And that's in real time what I'm, to be completely transparent, that's what I'm now trying to figure out. How can I sustain happiness in an industry where you're constantly like rejected or you're winning, or in a social media society where you're only posting the highlight reel, so yeah. And now I'm really, 8 years deep of losing my parents, still feeling like I don't know if I'm really okay. Like
yeah,
I've come through this on the other side where I'm not suicidal as I was, or I'm not I'm what's the greatest way to, I'm not, I guess I'm now more disassociating from the grief,
yeah.
but it doesn't mean the grief isn't still there. It's just I'm not looking at it.
Yeah, I don't think there's a word to sum it up, but it's not as raw, and maybe you're dealing with it in a different or more mature way of just times going on, and you're just adapting to change, but you'll never get over that or you'll never accept it. It's just learning to deal with each day as it comes, I suppose.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And
And
I think that's why I still talk about them within the world of Holy Wars. One, because this band was started because of that
of
loss.
course,
But two, I realized like I'm not here asking for pity. I've certainly, people have gone through way worse than even I've experienced. But when you do talk about how you're feeling and you're being really honest about it, then other people that may hear that feels not so alone, if that makes sense.
no,
I mean, that's
no,
what happened with
definitely,
other artists for me. Yeah. So that's why I'm like, yeah, no, to be transparent, I don't even know if I'm technically okay because I found a way to cope by distracting myself. But I wouldn't say it's a band-aid, but it's not real
yeah.
healing, if that makes sense. So
Isn't it sometimes crazy? And I can't relate because I'm not in a successful band, but I'm doing a podcast that's doing very well. But you put yourself in this really kind of toxic environment sometimes, because we could be serving people in a restaurant and the most you're going to get is some dickhead telling you that their food isn't cooked correctly, or that
yeah.
that it's
Or
took too
stiff a
long.
tip.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but we are in a entertainment kind of world and bubble where you're judged by how many likes you've got, how many Instagram likes you've suddenly received on your latest post, how many views you've got, and it's
Yeah.
constantly a world of it's never enough. And even when I was lucky enough on episode 300 to have the singer Simon Neil from Biffy Clyro, one of my favorite bands in the UK,
Mm-hmm.
huge, and it
Yes,
got to
yeah.
number 2 in the whole of the UK, number 5 in Canada, and number 12 in America of all podcasts. So I was like,
Wow.
fucking hell. But still, it was like, but it's not number one.
Yeah.
you know,
I
and but
I
there's some
get that. Yeah.
and I wonder sometimes why we do it to ourselves, where it's amazing. And, when you're putting out your video on YouTube, you're probably refreshing to see how many people have viewed it, or on Instagram, how many people have looked at this
Yeah.
reel and why has one person said we're shit? But that will hit you harder than the 1,000 people that say it's brilliant. And
I
I don't know why
know.
we do it to ourselves sometimes. It's only when we talk out loud on interviews like this, I think, Are we crazy? Like we there are other roads to take, but we
We're
sometimes
masochists.
yeah, we keep doing it for some reason.
Yeah. It's so true. Like I feel like why have I chosen every industry where you're like it's a rejection more than it is a win? Also today in social media, and maybe it's just what I see in my feed, but I'm seeing so much hate out there, and not on the artist page. If you go to Billie Eilish, you will
Yeah.
see mostly love, I'm sure, if not all love. But if you go to a publication talking about artists, it's mostly hate. And I just don't understand that. And I don't, and some people will say, like, oh, well, this is what people think. So they have freedom of speech to say it. But is it really what they think? Or are they just saying it because it's an opposing opinion and now they're getting attention on their comment? Or I don't know. I don't know why. And I feel like publications and the algorithm, they're rewarding hate speech or this behavior. And it's become, I think, even more detrimental to anybody putting themselves out there on the internet in a
Yeah.
vulnerable way. Where back in the day, you might read your reviews or you don't, but it wasn't what it is now. Now it's so accessible, information's out there so quickly. People can see anything out of context and now decide who you are in 13 seconds, even if they don't even know the whole story, they haven't even heard the whole song. It's so, yeah. So there's something wrong with us that we keep coming back for punishment only for those wins when number two in the whole
I
is
know.
great,
I
but it's
know.
not number one. Yeah.
And
So I
and
think we're just masochists.
there's this strange mentality at the moment, which I've really discovered over the last couple of years. And I'm not moaning, I've just noticed it, especially with what you said about Billie Eilish and people, that people are trying to be the one person to hate it. So it's like the cool thing to do. So a brand new film comes out, everyone loves it, everyone's excited. Something like Barbie, everyone's like, oh, this is brilliant. The acting's great, the story's great.
Mm,
Ryan Gosling's having the best time of his life. But it's
yeah.
cool to be the one troll to say, what's he fucking doing? He's wasting his career, or how shite does
Yeah.
this look? And it seems to be that people will judge it before it's even been seen or been listened to. And people just want you to fail before you've even shown them
Yeah.
what you've got. And I find that so difficult sometimes when I see a band bringing out an album or they've been announced as a headliner of a festival. And it's like the organizers have taken a chance because it can't always be the same bands every year. They need to have that
Absolutely.
part where they hand over the baton and they kind of like, right, it's my turn. And usually those bands fully deserve it, but it's like, no, they're not legends. They don't deserve it. They're too young. They haven't sold enough records. They're not cool enough. And I think
Yeah.
give everyone a bit more of a chance. Like we're all working really hard trying to make a name for ourselves. Bands are doing more now because of streaming to go on the road and actually sell records and travel and play more shows than they ever would even imagined just to break
Yeah.
even. And it's like, and, and there's always someone
Exactly.
who's there like, I want you to fail. And I'm like, give us a break, you know?
Well, people, they don't look at, I mean, I guess anybody now, like it's like celebrity, the concept of like influencers now, where
Yeah,
it's like anybody can do anything and go viral for anything. But still, when it comes to celebrities or musicians, no matter where you are and like being known, like I'll see this a lot too, like a musician that is like really fucking popular, but you'll still see comments that are like, who question mark, as like a way to like bring them down,
I
and I'm
know.
like, this artist is doing way more than you've ever done in your
And
whole
it's
life.
literally
Like
like Paul McCartney or something. And it's
yeah,
like, what are you
who,
doing? You know?
but it's just like, and I think because they don't look at anybody on the internet, but especially people pushing a product or pushing a song or an actor, they look at it as like, you're not real, so I can knock you down. Like you're not an
Yeah,
actual person behind this. And I think that that's where it gets really dangerous. But at the same time, we are the ones putting ourselves out there
of
because we
course.
have
Yeah.
this need, this love of what we do. We don't love the internet. And in fact, every day I wish for the servers to be blown up. And then we have to go back to whatever dinosaur time that was post internet. But, the thing I write about, like I have it nuanced in the lyrics of like this social media society killing humanity. I'm still going out there saying new song coming out on the blah blah blah, you know. So it's like I am the thing I hate because it's like, do you want to be completely irrelevant and just go off the grid and go into the
Yeah.
forest and do nothing? So I don't know.
The
I haven't
realism
figured it
of it
out.
is it's the tool that's made me. You know, without it, I wouldn't be number two. I wouldn't get people checking this out. I couldn't do it like flyers on a on a
Yeah.
window of a gig venue or something. It is literally I need Twitter, I need Facebook, I need Instagram, but it's the monster that I try and moan about, but it's created what I've done, so I can't defeat it.
And everybody feels this way. Like I've talked to several musicians at least where they're at different stages in their career and they all hate social media, but they all have to do it. And I think like the only way you can overcome this beast of the algorithm and maybe those trolls that exist now is just have some fucking thick skin, you know,
Yeah,
or don't read it if you're or revalue like or rethink like, do I really want to do this? You know, like there's a lot more in work that I think we have to do because and hopefully you just always lead by example. Like if I
yeah,
see something on the internet I don't like, I'm not the kind of person that will ever thumbs it down. I will never say
never.
I will never comment. And all I can do is just keep holding myself up to that standard. Obviously, with a name like Holy Wars, if we run an ad, there's so many shit talk comments about us not being Megadeth or whatever, because for better or worse, the name gives a certain demographic of people an idea of who they think we are. And when we're not that, they're really disappointed by it. And I have to understand, like, this has nothing to do with me.
No.
This is all about what their projection of what that I'm like, I'm infringing upon an idea that they think this is and they don't like that. But if I make it too personal about like they hate me, then yeah, I would never write a song
I was going to
again. I
say
would
you'd
never
never leave
post
the
it.
house. You'd never get up and try and ever write songs ever.
Exactly. And I just have to let it go and be like, look, this is what they want to say. And the only thing I have to now train myself is like I can't be embarrassed if other people see those comments. It's just like I don't need to look at it.
You just
But
kind of come to
y'all,
accept it, don't you, as much as you can. I'll never completely. I can't sit here and lie to you and say that it doesn't bother me because the one person that says
of
terrible
course it bothers
interview, I'm
us.
like, damn you, Jedi 223 who lives in America who I don't even know. Like, damn you. But
Yeah.
I'll look at the
Yeah.
nice comments and just kind of think, okay, it's all right, and then lie in bed thinking about
Yeah.
it for hours. But I will try the next day to kind of let it go.
It's true. And I've adopted this like morbid nihilistic approach to everything now where like the point is there is no point. So
No,
then I look at like this comment is fleeting. My life itself is fleeting. Why am I giving so much power to this one person? Or when you go to their page, it's a photo of a car. Like you don't
I
even know
know,
what
and
they
they've got
look
six
like.
followers. Yeah,
You know, and it's just like and I say this with like as if I've like got this confidence that it doesn't destroy me. Of course I have those days where it hits me at the right feel and I just am like, oh my god, am I shit? But then I'm like, wait a second, I'm not doing this for you.
no,
I'm doing it for not just, I mean, first and foremost, myself. This is little like why I started the band in the first place was as a way of healing. And when I saw that that turned into a positive response for other people, then I'm going to keep doing it. But if this one profile says it's shit, then sorry, then move on to something else. We're not for you. You know, like not every product is for me either, you know?
So talk to me about Cult Classic. Obviously, the EP, as this is being recorded, is literally days away from being released. As this goes out, it will be out, so people can hopefully listen to us talk today and then go and check it out on any of the streaming sites or even buy it. And I was wondering, basically, how this EP came about. Obviously, it's off the back of an album.
Mm-hmm.
Was this just a fact of you had so many songs that you thought I don't want to wait for an album, so we'll do it, less is more and do an EP?
Yeah, there was definitely that. Also we didn't start touring until 2021.
Yeah,
Like we played locally, but we never had the opportunity or the funds to just go on the road and, you know, go across, at least domestically across the states. And when we started to do that, we did it and our debut album was coming out. We realized we've gotten this response from the fans because we were opening. So
yeah,
most of them didn't even know who we were. They checked out our music prior. liked it enough to see our set, but then afterwards when we would be at the merch table and meeting the audience, the fans, we were like hearing the same thing over and over, where they would say, I checked you guys out, I liked it, but man, live, you guys are heavy, you're aggressive, you're in the crowd surfing, like I never expected this. And if only I have seen a hint of that, I would have been way more excited. And that happened city after city, tour after tour. And then Nick and I started to look at the writing and think like, okay, there's a disconnect here of what
Yeah.
we actually sound like and what the music recorded is giving people the impression of who we are. So now we decided during that time, and we were in the middle of touring. We were also in the middle of signing a record deal, and we didn't want to wait for a full length album. So we were kind of figuring out how to blend what we actually sound like with the recorded music. And we realized it had to go a bit heavier, a little bit more aggressive with the tempo. And we still get the lyrics, what I would talk about. And it wasn't even the lyrics, it was more just the sound that we were creating. So Cult Classic came about because we wanted to bring that live show to the recordings. But also during that time, it's like I really wanted to say some things lyrically that I already have a concept of what I want our next full-length album to be, and it's not that. So I want it, and it's more cult classic, it's more society based, but also the feeling behind cult classic was, our love of horror. And I really wanted to lean into the fact of what if the monster wasn't external, but it was inside of us? Like
Amazing.
what? So that's why Body Temple, if you saw the single cover for that, it's kind of inspired by like the House of Wax, but it's
Yeah.
coming from inside. The burning is from the inside. And Deus Ex Machina, the mechanical God from the machine, is coming from inside of us. But Cult Classic, the track is the first, though it's the only track in the whole EP where I kind of hint at, yes, it's coming internally, but it's also from this external influence that it makes us think about ourselves in a certain way. So that this EP is really for that expression, also to experiment with how do we make our live sound our recorded sound. So we're really excited also what we're coming up with next, because now I
Well,
think we're
but I
going to
think
have
that's
a handful
amazing
of
because I go and see many
yeah,
bands and they don't sound like the CD or the stream I've listened to on the way to the gig. So if you get to now have that opportunity to really show the
yeah,
fans what you expect, because when you're doing these support slots and obviously headlining bit with other bands and getting those kind of chances to win over a crowd that aren't there to see you, you want to make
oh
sure
yeah,
that when they leave and go, they come home, they get Now Cult Classic, and they're like, "Ah, yes, that was the band we saw tonight."
absolutely. And we've noticed too, like, no matter, we've gotten way more actual engaged fans by playing live than
Yeah,
any ad we've ever put out or our song being on a playlist. We'll get some that were like, oh, I saw you from this and I'm a fan now, which is great. So you still have to do the digital outreach. But what we noticed for our band, it really is about that human connection in our live show that really, and I'm out there, and so is the whole band. We're meeting every fan that wants to meet us because we don't take it lightly. We don't
no,
think about like, oh, we're just doing this and then don't come and say hi to us. If we're allowed to be out there, I'm going to be out there, and I'm going to give everybody my time. And if I only get 60 seconds with each person, I'm going to make every 60 seconds count, because I don't take any of this for granted. The
that's
fact that they are
amazing.
choosing to buy a ticket, they're coming to see an opening band, which already has like a stigma. I mean, how many times do you hear like, oh, I'm going to skip the openers? So I really value every person that is in that room, and if they actually liked us, to talk to us even more. So
Never change
for
because
me,
that's
always,
that is so
yeah,
important. People need to stay humble. And I know sometimes it might not be achievable if you grow and get so big that you literally haven't got time to meet every fan, but that mentality is so important. And I've met so many of my heroes that are then just sorry I haven't got a minute, and I'm like, I literally just want a photo or I just want a vinyl signed, and you haven't got 1 minute, and I've invested 10 years in your band and traveled all around the country to see you. So
I
it's so
know.
good to hear you say that sort of stuff.
Yeah, well, back to life and death,
Yep.
I look at it as like, I want every show we play every interaction I have I'm not saying I'm opening myself up to haters and bad people. You have to exercise
Of
boundaries,
course.
but I always look at it like, you know what? We don't know if we have the gift of tomorrow. So I want to make sure the last thing I do, especially with the art that I've created, is always honest, always humble. And, and I have to always realize it's not for everybody. So like it's for us.
That's a
And
great
the
mentality to
people,
have.
yeah. So I don't see myself, hopefully I don't see myself changing, but I will come. If you do see that in me, I give you full
Yeah,
right
I'll
to
come
be
over and be
like,
like, you ignored me. How
yeah,
dare
yeah.
you?
You're like, be like, listen,
Yeah,
when you
you
were
told
just
me.
starting out, yeah, it's they keep me humble to my words. But I don't like that either when people
No.
act like they don't have the time for you. And I get it even in LA with people that are not even famous and they just look like, oh, who are you? Why should
Yeah.
I care? It just is such a turnoff where you're talking to them and you're scanning the room to see who's more important to talk to. That's over your head. I hate that. So I always try to make sure I'm not like that.
My final question for you today, and what I do on this podcast to make it as fresh and as original as I can, is every person that's been on, and it's never changed since the very start 7 years ago, gets to choose the final song that's played. So, this is going to be a tough one. I'm putting you on the spot. So, as
Oh, geez.
today's episode is all edited and the world's ready to listen to us talk, you can have any song by any band in the history of music to be played. But why I'm asking this question is also for the reason. So I know at the moment your head's going, oh my God, I've got 1,000 songs.
I
We've
do.
talked about a lot of bands today. But
Yeah.
tell me the one that came to your heart and your kind of head the moment I asked the question. That's what the best thing to do. Because if you think about it for too long, you genuinely will never whittle it down to one.
I did think of two songs.
Okay.
The first one was Exit Music for a
Of
Film, just because
course.
that was the one that we just kept going back to. So feel free to do
That
that
has
one.
been used though, because Thrice came on and Ed from the
Oh,
band Thrice chose that. So I thought if you have another one, I always like to try and never repeat the same song.
True Love Waits, but the live version would have been my second to that.
Amazing.
But when you said it, actually, New Noise by Refused came on. So in my head,
I've had Refused on here, and they're just one of the most incredible live bands I've ever seen.
they
Dennis
are.
as a
Yeah.
frontman is just mind blowing, and that song,
Love
everything
Dennis.
about it, is the reason I want to pick up a guitar. That I'd want to scream into a microphone. That I just want to go out. Like, let's
Well,
have
that's the
that.
song.
Yeah,
That has it been used?
not yet.
Yes. Okay.
It would
It'll
be a
be that
contender
one.
for mine if I ever interviewed myself. That could easily be one of the top five songs I'd pick, just because it still sounds like it was recorded yesterday.
Yeah, it is so good.
The
I
energy behind
actually
that song, my God, it's a
I
mind blowing.
regret I never got to see Refuse, but we did have the opportunity right when we first started. We opened for Invasion,
Nice.
and I got the privilege to see Dennis live.
Yeah.
And I like the Jenny Beth story, the
Yeah.
hair on the back of my neck, where I just was like,
You'll get
I'm not
you'll
worthy.
get Refused. They'll be back. They'll. I don't think they've gone
Yeah.
forever. I never thought I'd get to see them, and I saw them twice a few years ago, and it was worth the wait. So I do believe that one day you'll see him swinging his microphone, and you'll hear
Yes.
New Noise live, and that'll be it. Life's complete.
I loved it. Well, that's my choice then.
Amazing. Honestly, I feel like we could talk for hours. And when you started talking towards the end, then about horror and the influences, I was like, oh, like I love horror films. So this is genuinely an open invite. I want you back on as soon as we can. And we can just talk
Please,
about
yeah.
horror and film influences and everything that made the EP. I think
I would
an
love
hour
that.
today is brilliant, and I've absolutely loved every minute of it, truly.
Thank you. Same, same.
But I
You're so
think
easy to talk
but I
to.
think we need to do more. I think like this is
Yeah,
chapter one, and I'd love to focus purely on horror influences and film influences and everything else. So the
I
listeners and
would
the
love
watchers
that.
right now can know this is only part one of a lot more to come.
If you're open to it, I would have Nick on that one because I love horror, but if you want the encyclopedia of horror, he's the man.
Well,
He's the
we can
guy.
do many different things. We can have Nick, we
Yeah.
can have you and Nick, we can do whatever. But I do believe
Yeah.
this is just the first of many.
Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for, like I really enjoyed like being able because sometimes when we talk about the history, it reminds me of why I'm doing this in the first place. And like we said about that masochistic abusive relationship we have with
Yeah.
ourselves, but with the music industry or podcasts, when you do go backwards into the why did you start this in the first place, it's always such a great reminder. So I always love these type of questions because I don't think in my daily life like why did I start doing it? I
Of
keep going
course,
like
and
Pac-Man,
sometimes you need to take a little snapshot of what you're doing or where you're at, or remind yourself that you have to stop. Even though we're Pac-Man and I'm very like you, I'll keep going. You have to stop
Yeah.
eventually. A ghost will get you, and you need to just push start again, or go
Yeah.
up a level, because otherwise I think you can burn out. I think it's very dangerous if you keep going, and I think just us reflecting today is a reminder of where we've come to and where we've got to so far. And it feels like
Yeah.
our journeys are still only just beginning. So it's really exciting that next time round we might be completely somewhere else and eating lots more dots and running away from
Yeah.
ghosts. But it's been an
Yeah.
absolute pleasure to have you on
Be
today.
like, thank you. And I hope to see you in person too.
Of
So let's
course, we will make
get
it
us to the
happen.
UK.
We'll do
Yeah. Thank
everything we
you.
can.
Thank you so much.